Hello guys, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening ulit sa inyo. Depende kung anong oras kayo nanonood. Welcome to another send of coaching sa subject naman na animal science. Na full disclosure lang, I'm still creating the presentation for crop protection. I am hoping na matapos ko later on, pero baka malabo kasi wala pa ako sa kalahati. But we'll see. I really hope na matapos ko yun agad para may maipost ulit ako sa inyo kinabukasan for crop protection naman. But this time, let's just focus more. Let's just put our attention sa subject na animal science. So number one, what is, so let's get this over with. What is the maximum speed of a quarter horse? So the maximum speed of a quarter horse that this horse can achieve in kilometers per hour during short distance sprint. So titignan natin dyan, hinahanap natin yung pinakamataas daw na speed ng quarter horse. Anong unit? Kilometers per hour in short distance. So hindi yan long distance but short distance or sprint in a sprint situation. So understanding this question is very important kasi during last season lumabas siya. So let's so the correct answer here is basically 88 kilometers per hour, or that is 55 miles per hour. So in fact, ang mga quarter horses natin, they are the fastest breed of horse in terms of short run sprinting. Okay? So American quarter horse, they have a maximum speed of 88 or 88.5 kilometers per hour, or that is 55 miles per hour. And ipinakita ko rin dito sa table na to yung iba't ibang speed ng iba't ibang mga breed. Baka lumabas sa exam. Okay? Now, dito sa mga options, yung 40 kilometers per hour is actually Belgian horse. Yung 54 kilometers per hour naman is Arabian horse. And yung 71 kilometers per hour is thoroughbred. Now, these three horse breed, they are more of a long run distance runners. So mga endurance runners sila, no? Endurance runner breed sila. Whereas ang quarter horse mo, mabilis siya lalong-lalo na when it comes to sprinting at around 88 kilometers per hour. So parang sasakyan na sa bilis. So next question. What is the normal pulse rate or heartbeat of an adult Carabao in beats per minute? So, very important itong lesson na to when it comes to interpreting vital signs. Okay? So, it is one of the competencies for anyone working in animal agriculture. So, later on, ipepresent ko rin sa inyo yung mga normal vital signs in terms of pulse rate, respiration rate, and body temperature. Okay? Now, the correct answer here is yung normal na pulse rate or heartbeat ng adult Carabao is 40 to 60 beats per minute. So, ito, mini-measure yan, yung kanyang pulse rate primarily, using the, or the measurement for the pulse rate is taken by locating yung tinatawag nating coccygeal artery. So ano yung coccygeal artery? Makikita yan doon sa base ng tail ng hayop. So dyan binibilang kung yung pulso ng ating carabao. Okay? And then basically binibilang lang yan for 30 seconds and then they multiply it by 2 to get the beats per minute. Okay? Now, ang mga hayop usually, the larger the animals are, the slower yung kanilang heart rate than the smaller ones. So yung mga chicken, mabilis yung kanilang heartbeat or pulse rate in comparison to cattles or carabaos. So bakit kaya nangyayari yun? It's because larger animals, they have proportionally mas mababa yung metabolic rates nila, and they have greater cardiac efficiency. So, dahil mas efficient yung heart nila and mas mabagal yung kanilang metabolic rate, mas mabagal rin ngayon yung kanilang pulse rate or heartbeat. Okay? So, that's 40 to 60 beats per minute for Carabao. Okay? Papasok na rin dyan actually yung cattle. For adult horses, they have 28 to 40 beats per minute. For goats, we have 70 to 80 beats per minute. And for foals or small pigs, we have 80 to 100 beats per minute. So mapapansin mo, habang palaki ng palaki yung hayop, pababa naman ng pababa yung kanilang heartbeat or pulse rate. And then kapag lumiliit yung hayop, pataas naman ng pataas yung kanilang heartbeat or pulse rate. So this is a table showing the normal pulse rate of our farm animals. Okay, if you can see here, for your ducks, it's 160 to 380. For your chicks, it's 350 to 450. So yung mga poultry natin, mataas talaga yung beats per minute nila, whereas larger animals tend to have a lower pulse rate or beats per minute. Now, how about respiration rate of farm animals? So, ano yung normal respiration rate ng farm animals? So, dito makikita mo yan, okay, in this table. So, I would suggest you review this. Familiarize yourselves. Now, ang mahalaga dyan is alam mo yung interval, or at least you are familiar with the interval na normal respiration rate or normal vital signs ng mga hayop natin. But vital signs, they tend to vary. They tend to vary based on several factors, especially this respiration rate. They tend to vary um, on several factors. Kasama na dyan, of course, yung ano ba yung age ng hayop, yung body size, ano ba yung environmental temperature, right? Yung atmospheric condition. So kahit na-address yan, pwede pa rin magbago yung respiration rate. Yan. So mahalaga is siguro alam lang natin kung paano i-measure yung mga ganyan. For respiration rate, I believe the way that they measure this is by observing yung chest cavity ng hayop. And by doing that, nami-measure natin kung ilan yung hinihinga niya per minute. Ito naman yung normal body temperature for farm animals. So, nilagay ko na dyan yung body temperature in Celsius and body temperature in Fahrenheit. So, this one, ang body temperature naman ng hayop, these are typically measured in these are being taken in their rectum, no? So, it's one of the most important vital signs, lalo na pagdating sa animal health. Kasi kapag mataas yung body temperature, usually this indicates some sort of infection or fever or inflammatory diseases. Okay? Kapag mababa naman masyado yung temperature, maaari naman na meron ng cold shock na tinatawag, or the body's now is under a severe illness. So, if you can see here as well, yung mga poultries natin, yung mga chicken, ducks, and turkeys, they have higher body temperatures than their mammal counterparts. Now, the reason behind that is because poultry have higher or faster metabolic rates. At the same time, hindi rin nagpapawis ang mga poultry. So they do not sweat, and they rely entirely on respiratory evaporation for heat dissipation. Kaya they experience heat stress at lower environmental temperatures in comparison to your livestock animals. Number 3 question, which of the following is classified as a meat type breed of goat? So the question is asking for a goat, or for a breed of goat, that is used primarily for their meat. So yan ba ay Saanen, B. Toggenburg, C. Alpine, or D. Boer? So isa-isahin natin yung mga options to know the correct answer. So Saanen, this is a Swiss dairy breed of goat. So for milk production yan. And isa yan sa mga pinaka-recognize na highest milk producer among goat breeds. So your Saanens, they are highly productive in terms of milk production, but they are not typically raised for meat. So hindi na Saanen yung tamang sagot. Okay? So sa mga Ilocano diyan, um, Saanen is saan nga saan nga ususaran or hindi ginagamit for milk production. Okay? Now na naman ang Toggenburg. Now, Toggenburg is another Swiss dairy breed. Okay? So this one is also known for milk production, but this Toggenburg is usually smaller than your Saanen. But again, for milk production or for dairy production ulit itong Toggenburg na breed na to. Okay? So, hindi na naman ito yung tamang sagot kasi nga ang hinahanap natin dun sa question is the meat type. How about your Alpine? Now, so your Alpine is a French, so hindi na siya Swiss, is a French dairy breed. Okay? So, it's also used to produce milk. Your Alpine are very highly adaptable to various climates, and they are usually used to breed with other dairy breeds in order to improve milk production capacity. Okay? Now, ang Alpine, ulit, is a dairy breed. So, hindi ulit yan meat type. So, hindi na naman ito yung tamang sagot. So, ang tamang sagot is yung letter D, which is the breed called Boer. Okay? Now, itong Boer na to is actually a breed that produces premier quality meat. So, your Boer originates from South Africa. And malalaki talaga itong mga to. Okay? In fact, the word na Boer was derived from the Dutch or African word meaning farmer. Okay? And these goats represent the result of intensive selective breeding for meat traits. So mga Boer natin, meron siyang iba't ibang klaseng characteristic. For example, unang-una dyan, malaki yung kanyang body frame. So really, dahil malaki yung body frame niya, it is really raised for meat production. Yung muscular development din niya is excellent. So, excellent yung kanyang muscles. So, mapapansin nyo, malaking breed talaga ito. They have a favorable body composition. They have a dressing percentage of around 50 to 57%. Okay? So, kapag kinatay mo yan, 50 to 57% ang magagamit mo na pwedeng kainin. Ang growth rate niya, usually it's very rapid as well. And basically, yung overall genetic potential niya is for meat production talaga. So, ang tamang sagot dyan is letter D. Now, I have created another table for you guys para makita natin yung iba't ibang mga breeds as classified to their use. So, for dairy breeds, we have yung nabanggit natin kanina, Alpine, Saanen, Toggenburg, Nubian, La Mancha, Oberhasli, etc. For meat breeds naman, we have Boer, Spanish, Kiko, Myotonic, Savannah, Texmaster. And then meron din tayong tinatawag na mga fiber types. So these are usually grown for their wool. Katulad ng Angora, Kashmir, Pigora, which is a cross of Pygmy and Angora. And we have Kashgora, which is a cross between Angora and Kashmir. And then meron din naman tayong tinatawag na mga dual or multi-purpose type like Nubian, Pygmy, and Myotonic. Next question. Number 4. If an animal develops goiter, it is most likely deficient in which nutrient? So kapag ang hayop natin nakadevelop ng goiter, ano kaya daw yung nutrient na kulang doon sa hayop? So it is vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K, or iodine. Okay? Now, to answer this question, let's go to let's go to all of these nutrients and see kung ano ba yung disease or effects of deficiency ng mga vitamina or minerals na yan. So for vitamin A, kapag kulang ang vitamin A, usually ang disease or effect niyan is what we call as xerophthalmia or dry eyes. This xerophthalmia could also cause some sort of night blindness, and kapag napabayaan, nabubulag rin talaga yung hayop. So kapag kulang ang vitamin A, nagkakaroon tayo ng xerophthalmia or blindness in general. Now, aside from affecting the eyes, which is vitamin A, no, usually ang manifestation yan is on the eyes. So aside from affecting the vision of the animal, it could also reduce the growth of your animal. Okay? It could also weaken their immunity. Nagkakaroon din ng mga reproductive failures, and for some, it could result to abortion. Okay? So yan yung magiging effect kapag kulang ang vitamin A. Now, kapag vitamin D naman ang kulang, usually nagre-result yan ng rickets, especially for young animals. Now, if we're talking about adult animals, nagkakaroon naman sila ng tinatawag na osteomalacia. Okay? Now, rickets and osteomalacia, these are weakening of skeletal structure. Okay? So, humihina yung kanilang mga buto-buto. And hindi yun maganda sa isang hayop kasi kung mahina yung buto, hindi niya masusuportahan, of course, yung kanyang weight. For example, yung osteomalacia, this is a demineralization of existing bone that causes severe pain, weakness, and decreased productivity. So isipin nyo na lang na yung kanilang buto ay nagiging manipis, ano? Na napupudpud, kumbaga. And this is not good for your animals. Now, bakit kaya na kapag kulang ang vitamin D, yun ang nagiging resulta? Because vitamin D is critical for calcium absorption and regulation. So, kailangan ng vitamin D para ma-absorb and ma-regulate ng hayop yung calcium na nasa katawan niya. And alam naman natin na ang calcium is very critical in terms of building strong bones. So, vitamin D, kapag kulang yan, yan yung nagiging result. We also have vitamin K. Kapag kulang ang vitamin K, ano naman kaya yung unique na effect nito? So, kapag vitamin K naman ang kulang, usually nagkakaroon tayo ng hemorrhagic syndrome. Or when you say hemorrhagic syndrome, basta-basta na lang nagbi-bleed yung hayop. So, nagkakaroon ng abnormal bleeding kasi kapag kulang ang vitamin K, hindi po nakakapag-clot. Okay? Hindi nakakapag-clot ng maayos yung dugo ng hayop. So, kapag kulang ang vitamin K, ito po yung nagiging result. Nagkakaroon tayo ng bleeding, abnormal bleeding, or we call that hemorrhagic syndrome. Kapag naman kulang ang iodine, okay, kapag kulang yung iodine, based on the question kanina, dyan na po nagkakaroon ng goiter. So what is goiter? Essentially, goiter is the enlargement of the thyroid gland. Okay? So, ang goiter actually is a symptom na kulang, no? Kulang or insufficient yung hormone na pinoproduce ng thyroid gland. And kaya nag-enlarge yung ating thyroid gland dyan is because nag-overcompensate siya. Okay? So it attempts to overcompensate yung kakulangan dun sa hormone na kanyang pinoproduce. And kapag kulang din ang iodine, kapag kulang ang iodine, it could also reduce the growth of your animal. Pwede rin na hindi sila ganon ka-adaptive sa cold temperature. Okay? Nagkakaroon ng mortality, lalo sa mga batang hayop, and reduced fertility. Okay? So, yan yung mga effects ng nutrient deficiency among the four options doon sa question kanina. So, since ang tinatanong natin is, ano daw ba yung kapag ang hayop daw ay nakadevelop ng goiter, ano yung kulang na nutrient? Siyempre, ang tamang sagot dyan is letter D, which is iodine. Okay? Now, I created another table, okay, listing all of the vitamins here and ano naman yung diseases or effects of deficiency ka or ano naman yung mangyayari kapag kulang yung mga iba't ibang mga vitamins and minerals na ito. For example, kapag kulang ang vitamin B complex, okay, nagkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag na perosis or curled toe paralysis. Yan. So, curled toe paralysis, kapag nakita niyo yan sa exam, ang kulang po dyan, vitamin B complex. Kapag naman vitamin E ang kulang, so kapag vitamin E naman ang kulang, nagkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag na encephalomalacia. Okay? Or we also call this as white muscle disease. So yung muscles ang naapektuhan naman dyan, nagkakaroon ng muscular dystrophy, okay? White muscle disease, and it can also affect the neurological function of the animal. Kapag naman copper ang kulang, okay, more than likely nagkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag na enzootic ataxia. Okay? So this is a progressive spinal cord degeneration. So yung spinal cord yung naapektuhan dyan and it causes severe incoordination. Kasi alam natin na yung spinal cord, parang yan yung foundation ng neurological function ng animals in terms of movement. No? Kasi yan yung um, sets of nerve cells na nasa gitna ng katawan ng hayop. Selenium, this is in relation din ano, to vitamin E deficiency. So muscles din yung naapektuhan dyan. So vitamin E at saka selenium, usually halos parehas yung effect nila kapag kulang yung dalawang minerals or vitamins na yan. Phosphorus naman, nagkukos din po yan ng um, bone disease. Okay? So bone disease rin like rickets and osteomalacia, kaparehas nung ating vitamin D kanina. And we have calcium. Calcium naman nagkukos yan ng eclampsia. Okay? So this is a life-threatening neurological disease from disrupted neuromuscular transmission, particularly when lactation demands exceeds the animal's calcium mobilization capacity. So, yan naman yung mga diseases or effects of deficiency kapag kulang yung mga nutrients na nandito. Number 5, which instrument is specifically used to measure blood pressure in livestock animals like goats and cattle? So, we are looking for the instrument that is used to measure the blood pressure in livestock animals. So, yung instrument ba na ginagamit ay stethoscope, thermometer, spirometer, or sphygmomanometer. So, isa-isahin natin yung mga options. Ang stethoscope is an auditory device used to listen to internal sounds katulad ng heart sounds, lung sounds, or abdominal sounds. So, ang hinahanap natin is something that will measure blood pressure. But stethoscope is, alam naman natin yan kapag pumunta ka sa ospital, it is only used to measure sounds internally of the body. Okay? So, stethoscope, that is not the correct answer. Thermometer, alam na rin natin yan, it measures body temperature. Okay? It does not measure blood pressure, but rather body temperature. So, ang thermometer, ginagamit lang para malaman natin kung may lagnat ba yung hayop. Okay? Or mababa yung kanyang temperature. Ang spirometer naman, okay, ang mini-measure niyan is yung lung function. So, lung function and respiratory parameters of the animals. So, it measures the volume of air move in and out of the lungs during breathing. Okay? So, yan naman ang gamit ng spirometer. So, again, hindi for blood pressure yan. So, ang instrument na ginagamit to measure blood pressure is what we call as your sphygmomanometer. Okay? Sphygmomanometer. So, manometer. Okay? Sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer, okay, was derived from the Greek word sphygmo, referring to pulse, and manometer, referring to pressure measurement. Okay? So usually, sphygmomanometer, nilalagay din yan doon sa, what do you call this? Sa parang kamay ng hayop to measure yung kanilang blood pressure. Number 5. Okay, so ang tamang sagot dyan, of course, is sphygmomanometer kasi yung instrument that measures blood pressure is that one. The rest of the options na discuss naman na natin kanina, iba-iba yung mini-measure ng mga yan. Stethoscope is internal sounds, thermometer is temperature, spirometer is more on the respiratory function. Number 6, ano naman daw yung typical floor space? So what is the typical floor space requirement for dairy heifers in their housing facilities? So kapag ikaw ay nag-alaga ng heifer or a young cattle na is meant for that is meant for milk production, kaya siya tinawag na dairy heifers, ano kaya yung floor space requirement niya? So ilang square meters, okay, yung kailangan ng hayop na yan. So ang tamang sagot dyan ay letter C, 4.5 meters squared per animal. Number 7, what is the minimum floor space requirement recommended for gilts naman? So kanina, heifers or dairy heifer. Ngayon naman is yung mga batang babaeng baboy. So young female swine, we also call that as your gilt. So ang minimum floor space requirement naman ng ating mga gilts is letter B, no? 0.5 to 1 square meters. Okay? Now let's look at some of the typical floor space requirement for our poultry and livestock in animal science. Okay? So dito sa table na to, this is the typical floor space requirement for broilers. So we're talking here about chickens that is meant for meat production. Okay? Now for kapag ang broiler natin is 4 weeks and below, ang typical na floor requirements niyan is 6.25 meters squared per 100 birds. Okay? Na kung gusto mong malaman yung floor space per bird, i-divide mo lang yung 6.25 by 100 para makuha natin yung per bird. Now, if that is above 4 weeks old, typical floor space requirement niya is 12.5 meters squared per, again, 100 birds. So this is meant now for finishing and growing. Pine-prepare na yan for market para maibenta. How about for layers? So for layers, ito naman yung typical na floor space requirement nila. If we're talking about liter floors, 14 square meters, okay, per 100 birds. Kapag yung floor is slatted floor, that's 6 square meters per birds. Or kapag a combination of your slatted and liter floors, we have 7 square meters per bird. Okay? So, yan yung mga typical na floor space requirement naman kapag layers or the chicken is meant for egg production. Okay. Layer chickens. Okay, so this one is for beyond 22 weeks. Okay. So ito kasi is for 7 to 22 weeks na layer chicken. Now, beyond that, yan, kapag ready na siya mangitlog, ito naman yung mga typical floor space area niya. So for liter floors, 17 square meters per 100 bird. Kapag slotted, 9 square meters per 100 birds. Kapag slot liter floor yan, that's 14 square meters per bird. And kapag naka-cage naman or battery cage housing, we have 5 meters square per 100 birds. Now, itong cage housing na to, this is usually used for intensive confinement, for commercial laying purposes na. So, pangmaramihan talaga yung mga yan, naka-cage lang yung mga layers natin, and typically, mas maliit yung floor space requirement nila para ma-maximize yung production ng mga itlog. How about for pigs? So, for growing pigs, no? For growing pigs, those that are meant for meat, so we have yung weight category nila, and the floor area that they will need. So for growing pigs, kapag up to 10 kilos yan, 0.11 meters squared per animal. Kapag 11 to 20 kilos, that's 0.20. But basically, habang palaki ng palaki yung mga growing pigs natin, pataas rin ng pataas, of course, yung space requirement na pangangailangan nila. How about for pigs that are meant for breeding or for reproductive stock? So for gilts, ang typical floor space requirement niya is 1 square meter per animal. So yan yung nabanggit natin kanina dun sa question. For pregnant sows, we have 1.2. For boars, we have 7.5 square meters per animal. Kapag lactating yung sow, okay, that's 7.4 meters squared, specifically for farrowing period. Kapag naman nursing yung lactating sow, 5.6 meters squared per animal. And kapag hindi nanganganak or hindi nagpapalaki yung sow, it's a dry sow, okay? Hindi siya buntis o hindi siya nanganganak, ang space requirement lang niya is 1.8 meters squared per animal. Dito naman for dairy cattle. So for dairy cattle, yan yung mga floor space requirements naman nila. So from calf to different to different ages, yearlings, heifer. Okay, yan yung another question kanina. So 5 meters square per animal. Milking or dry cow is 6 meters square per animal. And yung cow that is under maternity is 10 meters squared per animal. Okay? For beef cattle, ito naman, yung floor space requirement nila. For beef cattle, that is in a shed or barn area, 4 meters squared per animal. Kapag naman pasture area, that would be 5 meters squared per animal. For carabao or buffalo, it would be for 4 meters squared per animal, lalo na kapag intensive housing yan. That is usually used for fattening operations. How about for sheep and goats? So makikita mo rin dito yung sheep and goats. Okay? At what kilo at ano yung space requirement na pangangailangan nila. So I would suggest you also go over this. Try to familiarize yourselves with the different measurements. Again, I just want to, full disclosure lang, siguro sa ibang sources, maiba-iba yung mga digits or mga data na makikita nyo dito. Primarily kasi, iba-iba rin yung practices per bansa, let's say. Pero ito yung parang standards naman na kwan. So long as malapit dyan, so long as ang mahalaga dyan is familiar kayo para kapag lumabas yung mga options, ang pipiliin nyo lagi is yung pinakamalapit na measurement. Okay, so this one is another table for pregnant and lactating sheep and goats naman. So yan naman yung floor area or required space na pangangailangan nila. Okay, number 8. A lactometer is primarily used to detect milk adulteration by measuring what? A. Milk temperature, B. Specific gravity, C. Bacterial count, or D. Fat percentage only. So, sinabi dito sa statement na yung ginagamit daw na tool is lactometer. Okay? Now, itong lactometer daw na to, ginagamit siya as a tool to detect milk adulteration or to detect the quality of your milk or detect the poor quality within the milk. Ngayon, the question is, itong lactometer na to na ginagamit to detect milk adulteration, ano ba yung kanyang mini-measure? So, mini-measure ba niya is milk temperature, specific gravity, bacterial count, or D, fat percentage. So, milk quality assurance, this is a critical concern sa global dairy production. Kaya mainam, may mga pamamaraan tayo para ma-determine yung quality ng gatas. At isa sa mga pamamaraan na yan is yung tinatawag nating lactometer. Okay? Now, ang lactometer, this measures now the specific gravity of the milk. Okay? So, specific gravity yan. So, ang specific gravity, this is a powerful indicator of milk purity and primary composition kasi yung density ng ating milk reflects its water content and mineral composition. So of um, merong standard set ng specific gravity yung ating gatas. Like for instance, kapag cow milk yan, ang specific gravity should be under the range of 1.028 to 1.032. Typical is 1.030. Ang buffalo milk naman, since they are denser, so they are denser, usually ang kanilang specific gravity is 1.032 to 1.035. Okay? So yung mga numbers na yun, makikita nyo yan sa notes kapag nireview nyo yung notes ng mga questions na to. So this one, a lactometer measures milk adulteration through specific gravity. So pag-usapan natin yung iba't ibang mga tools or tests na ginagamit natin to detect milk adulteration. So unahin natin dyan yung lactometer. Ito, nakalagay na pala. Yung typical values ng density, okay, for cow milk and buffalo milk. So ang lactometer test, simply, it is a simple glass tube kung saan nilalagay natin ito. Okay, nilalagay natin yan doon sa glass tube na may gatas and may numbers dyan, minimeasure natin yung kanyang, what do you call this? Minimeasure natin yung kanyang, yung kanyang density. Specific gravity, I mean. Okay. So, kapag yung number is under this range for cow milk and buffalo milk, and ibig sabihin, maganda yung quality ng gatas. Now, aside from lactometer test, nami-measure din natin yung quality ng gatas, yung kalidad ng gatas ng baka or buffalo through what we call as organoleptic test, okay? Or sensory check. So basically, kapag inamoy mo, tinignan mo, or nilasahan mo yung gatas, malalaman mo kung yung gatas ba na yun ay adulterated or hindi. Malalaman mo kung malapit na ba siyang mapanis, or panis na, or maganda pa yung kanyang quality. Ang tawag doon, organoleptic test. Now for some, medyo gumagamit na sila ng chemical. Okay? Kapag gumamit ka ng alcohol, ang tawag mo doon, alcohol precipitation test. Okay? So this one is a spoilage test check. So basically, imimix yung gatas with alcohol to see kapag magpo-form siya ng milk curdles. Now, kapag nag-form ng milk curdles, ibig sabihin, adulterated or baka spoiled na yung gatas. Kapag smooth siya, ibig sabihin, good, okay, yung gatas. Now, aside from alcohol precipitation test, meron din tayong tinatawag na COB test or clot on boiling. Kung saan you will get the sample milk and then you are going to heat it. Okay? And kapag hinit mo yan, kapag nag-form yan ng curdles, okay, nagkaroon ng buo-buo doon sa gatas, then it is an indication that the milk is spoiled, or that the milk is spoiled, or it might have high acidity. Kapag smooth siya, kahit after mo siya i-heat, it is an indicator naman na maganda pa yung quality ng gatas. So bakit kaya? Bakit kaya ginagamit ang heat to determine if the milk is adulterated or not? Because heat makes spoiled milk's protein break apart faster. So kapag spoiled yung gatas at hinit mo yan, the particles within the protein within the milk will break apart faster. Whereas kapag naman hindi adulterated or hindi spoiled yung gatas, mas intact yung kanyang protein. We also have titratable acidity test or pH test. So basically, tinitignan lang natin yung pH ng gatas dyan. So fresh milk should have around 6.6 to 6.8 pH. Kapag mas mababa dyan, maasim na yung gatas mo, ibig sabihin, spoiled na yan. Okay? Spoiled na yan. And temperature check is also another test that we use. Simply measuring kung gaano kalamig yung gatas through thermometer also works, no? Now, kapag ang gatas, after ma-harvest niyan, dapat makukool na siya at around 4 degrees Celsius. So, dapat nasa malamig na environment na siya. Now, kapag na-deliver yung gatas na yan and hindi ganoon kalamig yung gatas, it might be one indicator na maaring spoiled na siya. Okay? So, cold temperatures slow down bacterial growth, whereas warm milk gets spoiled faster. Yun lang yung reasoning behind temperature check. Now, if you want to do the nitty-gritty part of testing the milk adulteration, you can do what we call as TBC or total bacterial count test. So, dyan, binibilang natin actually kung ilan ba yung living bacteria na naandon sa ating gatas. So, if the total bacterial count is 10,000 to 100,000 bacteria per ml, usually good quality yan. But if it is more than 100,000 bacteria per ml, usually marami ng bacteria dyan. So it could indicate na malapit ng mapanis or panis na yung gatas. Now, if you don't want to measure the bacteria, you can measure the fat percentage of the milk. So this one, actually, hindi naman siya adulteration test, ano, but more of a quality test. Now, when we say adulteration kasi, it also means na tinitingnan natin kung yung gatas ba ay pure or may halo siyang tubig. Okay? Now, for fat percentage test, basically, minimeasure natin kung gaano ba karami yung fat content doon sa gatas. And there are two ways to measure the fat percentage, either the Gerber method or the traditional way of doing it, or sa ngayon, meron na tayong makabagong technology that uses milk analyzers. Okay? Now, simply speaking, yung fat percentage test, dapat yung fat percentage content na makukuha natin based off on the test, whether that be Gerber method or milk analyzer method, it should fit in doon sa normal na standard na makikita natin for cow's milk and for cow milk and other types of milk, no, like buffalo milk, goat milk, sheep milk. Okay? So, yeah, later on pag-uusapan natin yung typical na fat percentage, especially yung difference ng um cow's milk and buffalo milk. Kasi kung makikita natin, mas mataas nga yung fat content ng buffalo milk kaysa doon sa cow's milk. So yan yung iba't ibang mga test to determine yung to know kung yung gatas ba ay na-adulterate, na may halong tubig or malapit na siyang ma-spoil, etc. So basically, these tests are meant to check yung quality ng gatas na kukuha natin sa ating hayop. Number 9, when a dairy goat is fed a total mix ration, so what is the expected response? The goat will leave behind fibrous material. The goat will pick and choose preferred ingredients. The goat will finish all of it, or the goat will refuse to eat. So kapag daw ang dairy goat, pinakain natin ng tinatawag na total mix ration, ano kaya yung magiging behavior ng goat na yon sa pagkain ng ating TMR? So to answer this question, we need to know, ano ba yung TMR? Ano ba yung total mix ration? Okay? Now, total mix ration, this is a feeding method that combines all necessary feed ingredients into a single, uniformly balanced mixture for your livestock. Now, usually, itong TMR na to, ginagamit yan for dairy and beef cattle. Although for some, ginagamit na rin siya for goat production as well. So, isipin nyo na lang, ang total mix ration, ganito. Okay? Instead na meron kang kanin, tapos meron kang ulam, ang gagawin, pagsasamahin na yon, yung kanin at ulam na yon. And yun yung ipapakain doon sa hayop. So kapag nagpapakain kayo ng baby, ganun yung madalas na napapansin nyo na ginagawa ng mga nanay, ano? Hinahalo na yung dalawa. So kapag pinaghalo yan, ang tawag mo doon, total mix ration. So hindi na, kumbaga, sa total mix ration, hindi na po tawag dito, magkakahiwalay yung pagkain ng hayop. Pinaghalo-halo na natin sila into a single mixture. Yan. Now, kapag ginawa natin yung TMR na yan, kapag pinaghalo-halo natin into a single mixture yung pagkain ng ating livestock, Ano dapat yung magiging behavior ng hayop? So, ang magiging behavior dapat dyan ng hayop, particularly ng ating dairy goats, is that uubusin or kakainin niya lahat. Okay? So, the goat will finish all of it. Ibig sabihin, hindi na siya mamimili kasi nandun na lahat ng nutrients, ng ingredients na kailangan niya. So, yun yung expected na response dyan. Kasi, unang-una, pinaghalo-halo na natin yan. So the goat cannot leave behind fibrous material. Kasi yung fibrous material nandun na sa pagkain nila. So hindi nila pwedeng hindi nila pwedeng tinikan, quote unquote, ano? Hindi nila pwedeng tinikan yung TMR natin. They could not also choose preferred ingredients kasi nga halo-halo na yan. Okay? Or the goat will not refuse to eat it kasi kailangan niyang kumain. So kung ano yung nandun sa harapan niya, kakainin niya. So kakainin niya yan, lahat-lahat. Okay? Walang ingredients na matitira kasi nga under TMR, halo-halo na. Okay? Number 10. At what age in months do heifers typically reach puberty and breeding condition? So ilang months kaya, no, na yung ating heifer? So what is a heifer? It is a young female cattle. So ilang months na mahihit ng heifer na yan yung kanyang puberty or mahihit niya yung kanyang sexual maturity. So is it 8 to 10, 12 to 14, 18 to 20, or 24 to 26? So ang tamang sagot actually dyan is letter B, no? 12 to 14 months of age. So itong timing na to aligns with heifer reaching approximately 55 to 65% of its mature body weight. So at 12 to 14 months, typically malaki na, mayroon ng mature body yung heifer natin, and they do have 55 to 65% mature body weight. So letter B ang tamang sagot dyan. So for this question, nag-provide ulit ako sa inyo ng table, okay, on the age at puberty in months for different animal species, for different farm animals. So for cattle, that's 8 to 15. So makikita nyo, ano, may variation, sabi ko nga, no? Kasi nakadepende rin actually yung nakadepende rin basically. Kasi ang tamang sagot dyan is 12 to 14. Okay? Now, ang tamang sagot dito is 8 to 15. So, mamimili kayo ano ba yung pinakamalapit or close to the interval. So, the closest there is around 12 to 14. Ano? Now, yung 8 to 10, medyo bitin pa siya according to this table. So, iba-ibang sources kasi yung age of puberty nakadepende rin yan dun sa breed ng hayop. Okay? Now, for cattle males, we have 9 to 12. For sheep, for ewes, 5 to 6 months. For rams, 7 to 8. Does, 4 to 5. Goats, 7 to 8 months. Gilts, 5 to 6. And for boars, 5 to 7 months. Kapag naman mares, 12 to 18 months. Stallions, 18 months. Okay? Rabbits, 4 to 5 months. And guinea pigs, 1 to 2 months. Okay? So I would also like you guys to review this and familiarize yourself on the different age at puberty of this animal species. Napuntahan natin yung sa poultry naman. Ito naman yung sa poultry. Chickens do mature at around 4.5 to 5 months. For ducks, 7 to 7.5 months. Turkeys, still 7 to 7.5 months. Geese and guinea fowl, 7 to 8 months. And quail, 1.5 to 1.75 months. Now, usually, ang way natin to measure the age at puberty ng mga poultry species natin is through weeks. So, meron na ring weeks equivalent dyan. Okay? Number 11. What is the minimum crude protein requirement for laying hens? So, ang tinatanong is yung CP content na pangangailangan daw ng mga hens that are meant to lay eggs. So 11 to 14, 16 to 17, 20 to 22%, or 24 to 26%. So for this question, ang tamang sagot dyan is letter B. Okay? 16 to 17%. Now, for laying hens, ang kailangan nila na crude protein content is around 16 to 17%. Although some sources would say 16 to 18, tapos yung typical is 17% crude protein. So, ano yung crude protein requirement ng mga poultry natin? So here, for broilers, usually mas mataas yung crude protein content nila kasi mas kailangan nila ng crude protein for the development of muscles na gagamitin na yun yung i-harvest natin para sa kanilang karne. Okay? Kapag layers naman, typically mas mababa kasi hindi naman for meat type yung ating layers. Just enough to sustain them, pero hindi ganun kataas as your broilers. For swine, ito naman yung typical na crude protein requirement nila, divided by the different stages of production. So, ang mapapansin nyo sa crude protein content, kapag yung stage ay, kapag yung hayop ay mas bata, usually mas mataas yung crude protein content niya. And habang palaki siya ng palaki, pabawas rin ng pabawas yung crude protein content niya. So, mapapansin nyo yung ganong phenomenon dito sa ating swine. For beef cattle, here, we have still, kung mapapansin nyo, kapag bata pa yung beef cattle natin, mataas yung crude protein content niya at 15%. And habang palapit siya ng palapit na ma-harvest or patanda siya ng patanda, pababa naman yung kanyang crude protein content. How about for dairy cattle? So for dairy cattle, ito yung mga kailangan niya na crude protein content at each life stage, no? So kapag dry yung dairy cattle, ibig sabihin hindi pa siya nanganganak or hindi siya buntis, usually mababa lang yung crude protein content na kailangan diyan. Okay? Now habang siya ay nangangalaga na ng kanyang mga anak or habang siya ay na-harvest na for milk, tumataas yung kanyang crude protein content. So, mas mataas na siya dun sa 9.9 crude protein content na kailangan kapag yung ating dairy cattle ay dry. Okay? Number 12, what is the normal length of pregnancy, okay, or gestation period for swine? So, ilang araw ba nabubuntis ang swine? Ilang araw na buntis ang swine before siya manganak? So, ang tamang sagot dyan is 114 days. Okay, 114 to 115 days. Okay? So again, I have created a table showing you the typical length of pregnancy among Philippine livestock. So for cattle, 280 to 290 days. So approximately 9 to 10 months. Okay? For Carabao, 310 to 320 days, approximately 10 to 10 and a half months. So ang pig, ang magic word dyan is yung 333 na tinatawag. 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. Okay? For goats and sheep, around 5 months. And for horses, around 11 to 11.5 months. So mapapansin nyo rin yung days of gestation ng hayop, kapag mas malaki yung hayop, mas pataas rin ng pataas yung typical gestation period niya. Okay, kung mapapansin nyo, habang lumalaki yung hayop, pataas rin ng pataas yung gestation period niya. Ang elephant, for example, if I'm not mistaken, around 18 months. No? So, malalaki na talaga yung mga yun. Next, which of the following animals produces sperm internally within their body? Okay? So, alin daw dyan sa mga hayop na yan ang nagpuproduce ng sperm internally? So, baka nalilito kayo. Baka isipin nyo, sir, hindi ba lahat ng sperm na puproduce internally sa loob ng katawan? Diba? So, later on, i-explain natin kung ano yung ibig niya sabihin dyan ng sperm being produced internally. So, ano kaya yung animal na nagpuproduce ng sperm internally? Pig, sheep, chicken, or goat? So, among the choices, ang animal na nagpuproduce ng sperm internally is your chicken. Okay? So, poultry, okay? Including chicken, yung galus-galus natin, produce sperm internally in the testes which remains inside the abdominal cavity. So kapag sinabi natin internally, okay, yung sperm kasi nila ay napuproduce doon sa testes na hindi tawag na ito. Yung testes kasi, okay, okay, di ganun na natin explain. Yung testes kasi ng ating poultry, okay, nasa loob yan ng kanyang abdominal cavity. So it stays inside the abdominal cavity. Kung mapapansin nyo, wala siyang external na scrotum at all. Okay? Hindi ka makakita ng quote-unquote bayag sa poultry. Okay? Now, bakit kaya ganito yung adaptation, yung natural, yung biological adaptation ng ating poultry? Because first off, kailangan nilang protektahan yung kanilang testes. And usually birds have a hotter, no? Mas mataas yung temperature nung kanilang katawan. And yung mataas na temperature na yon, kailangan nung kanilang sperm to develop properly, yung mataas na temperature na yon. Okay? Now, for mammals, hindi. Okay? Kasi for mammals, yung testes natin usually wala sa loob ng abdominal cavity. But rather, merong pouch na parang nasa labas ng katawan and doon na de-develop yung sperm. Now, bakit kaya ganun naman sa mammals katulad ng cattle, goats, and sheep? Kasi sa mga mammals, sensitive masyado yung ating sperm, okay? Sensitive yung sperm sa heat, okay? Usually, yung environment na kailangan ng sperm for mammals is lower than the core body temperature. That's around 5 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit lower than the body temperature. So kailangan ng sperm cells ng mas malamig na environment kaysa doon sa katawan ng hayop. Kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng pouch, okay? Nagkakaroon tayo ng scrotum kung saan doon na de-develop yung sperm cells. And actually, meron pang special adaptation yung mga mammals in terms of regulating the temperature in their testes. Meron tayong tinatawag, for example, na cremaster. Okay? Ano yung cremaster na yan? So, cremaster is a muscle na kapag masyadong malamig, again, sensitive nga yung ating sperm sa temperature. Kapag masyadong malamig, the cremaster will pull the testes closer to the body para painitin. Kapag naman masyadong mainit, the cremaster will lower the testes para mag-detach siya dun sa body temperature ng hayop. Okay? So, yan yung difference between poultry and mammals in terms of their testes. Okay? Kapag sinabi natin the sperm is produced within the body, it is typical yan for poultry kasi yung kanilang testes is within their body. Okay? Nandun sa loob ng internal ng kanilang abdominal cavity. Whereas yung mammals naman, meron silang scrotum. And yung scrotum na yan ay nakalaylay sa labas ng kanilang katawan in order to regulate the temperature which is needed for sperm production in mammals. Number 14. Among the total solids in milk, which component has the highest percentage? So, among the total solids, okay, mga solid daw na nasa gatas, alin kaya dito sa apat na to yung may pinakamataas na percentage? Fat, protein, lactose, or minerals? So, ang tamang sagot dyan is letter C. Okay? So, lactose, okay? Or yung tinatawag nating milk sugar represents the highest percentage component in the total solids in milk. Hindi kasama dyan yung tubig kasi solids yung pinag-uusapan. Okay? So, yung lactose yung pinakamarami, that is around 4.7 to 5% of the milk. So, ito yung composition ng gatas. Siyempre, yung pinakamarami sa gatas is yung water. Around 87 to 88%. Okay? So, lactose, 4.7 to 5% lang yan. Fat is 3.5 to 4%. Protein is 3.2 to 3.5%. And finally, we have minerals na sobrang trace amount lang, 0.7 to 0.8%. So, i-discuss natin isa-isa. So, pag sinabi nating water, yan yung liquid base ng ating gatas. It carries all of the nutrients na nabanggit kanina. Okay? So, that comprises around 87 to 88%. Yung lactose natin, yan yung pinakamarami when we're talking about total solids in your milk aside from water. So your lactose is around 4.7 to 5%. So ano ba ang lactose? Yan yung natural na sugar that is only found in milk. So this one provides quick energy for the body. It promotes calcium absorption in the intestines and supports the growth of beneficial and gut bacteria. Now your lactose is called a disaccharide carbohydrate or double sugar carbohydrate that is very unique sa ating gatas. Yung fat naman, these are energy-rich molecules that give milk its creamy texture and rich flavor. Okay? So kung bakit yung gatas natin ay may rich flavor, kung bakit siya masarap, it's because of the fat. Now the fat in the milk is important because it is essential in absorbing fat-soluble vitamins like your vitamin A, D, E, and K. Okay? Ang fat natin is primarily a triglyceride, okay? Or they are fats composed of glycerol and fatty acids. How about your protein? Protein comprises 3.2 to 3.5%. So usually ang protein natin, these are amino acid chains. Ang pinaka-purpose ng protein is to build and repair body tissues, muscles, and enzymes. And because of that, very critical siya for muscle development. Now sa gatas, meron tayong two main types of protein na makikita. Now 80% of the protein in the gatas, we call that as your casein, whereas 20% naman are whey protein. And finally, yung trace amounts na nandun sa gatas is the minerals, around 0.7 to 0.8%. So kasama na dyan, for example, yung calcium, yung phosphorus, okay? Yung potassium. So yung mga trace minerals comprises the smallest amount in your milk. Okay, number 15. What is the approximate per capita milk consumption in India annually? 201, 371, 471, or 571 grams. Now, actually, this question, I have looked into it. Medyo mali, yung the way that they frame it. Kasi kung mapapansin mo, ang tinatanong is per capita consumption annually. And then yung option natin in grams. Di ba? So, naniniwala ba kayo na sa isang buong taon, grams lang yung naiinom ng isang Indian citizen, right? Hindi pa umabot sa 1 kilo yan, right? So actually, ang tamang sagot dito is 471 grams. But it is not 471 grams annually, but rather 471 grams per day. Okay? So per day, yung 471 na yan. Ngayon, kapag sinabi natin per capita, ano ba yung ibig sabihin natin dyan? Per capita simply means by the head or per person. So ano ba yung average consumption ng isang tao sa India, basically? So paano nila kinukuha yan? Una, kinocompute nila ano ba yung total consumption ng good na yon, and then dinidivide nila sa total population. Yon. So ganun kunin yung per capita. And usually ang per capita that is meant to be measured annually, per year. Okay? Now, for this question, sabi ko nga, ang tamang sagot dyan is 471 grams. But the 471 grams here is not annually, but rather 471 grams per day. Okay? Kung pag i-compute natin yung kanyang annual na consumption, each Indian citizen is consuming 172 kilograms annually. Okay? So, nag-provide ulit ako dito ng per capita consumption of the different livestock and poultry products. Inilagay ko dyan yung top 5 na country. And then inilagay ko naman dyan yung rank ng Pilipinas at yung ating per capita consumption. So for milk, for instance, ang top 5 natin is Finland, Albania, Montenegro, Netherlands, and Sweden. Whereas the Philippines is ranked around 157 with 22 to 27 kilos of milk per year. So yan lang yung consumption natin ng milk. For pork naman, ang top 5 natin is Denmark, Spain, Poland, Germany, and Italy. And the Philippines rank 57th at 15.14 kilos per year for pork. And then we have beef. Ang rank 1 to 5 natin is Argentina, Uruguay, United States, Brazil, and Chile. And ang Philippines is at rank 98 at around 4.89 kilos per capita per year. For poultry meat, ang rank 1 to 5 natin is Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, United States, and Malaysia. And ang Philippines is rank 52nd at 15.3 kilos per year. Number 16. What is the minimum recommended distance between poultry house and residential area? So, gaano ba dapat kalayo ang poultry house sa residential area? Now, for some answer keys regarding to this question, ang sagot nila is 300 meters. However, I have researched it and according to the Philippine Agricultural Engineering Standard, ang layo dapat is around 200 meters. So 200 meters dapat dyan according to our PAES. Number 17. Which part of the nephron is characterized by high permeability, by high water permeability, but low ion permeability? So now we're talking here about the nephron, which is a part of your urinary system, a part of the animal's urinary system. So dito daw sa part ng nephron na to, the water content of the blood is highly permeable, ibig sabihin nakakalusot ang tubig dyan, pero yung mga ions na nandun sa blood na yon, they cannot go through it. So water nakakapasok or nakakapasok nakakalabas, ions hindi sila nakakapasok at hindi nakakalabas. So ano yung part kaya ng nephron yan? Is it the ascending loop of Henle, descending loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, or we also call that as your DCT, or proximal convoluted tubule, or PCT? Now, to answer this question, unahin nating tanungin muna sa sarili natin, ano ba ang nephron? So, yung nephron is the structural unit of your kidney. So, isipin nyo na lang, yun yung pinakamaliliit or basic unit ng filtration sa kidney ng hayop. So, itong nephron na to, they are the ones responsible for filtering blood and producing urine. Okay? Now, when you say permeability, again, it describes how easily substances can pass through the nephron. It describes how easily substances can pass through a material or barrier. Okay? In our case, the nephron. Okay? So, titignan natin kung madali lang bang mag-pass or hindi ganon madaling pumasok yung substance na yon doon sa material natin, which is in our case, the nephron. So, isa-isahin natin, balikan natin yung lesson natin on how urine is formed in the urinary system of the animal. So, sa kidneys ng hayop, merong mga maliliit na nephrons dyan, katulad nito. Okay? Now, saan magsisimula yung dugo in relation to filtration? Yung dugo ng hayop, na-filter yan doon sa kidney, primarily doon sa tinatawag nating glomerulus. Okay? So, this is where the filtering starts. So, it's a very fine sieve tube made up of many blood vessels, and when it is tangled together, na hinahawakan yan nung tinatawag na Bowman's capsule. But basically, your glomerulus, yan yung parang pinaka-start ng process ng filtration. So, dyan nag-i-start yan. And then, yung dugo, they are being pushed through the Bowman's capsule. No? So, it catches now the filtrate coming from the glomerulus. So, right after the Bowman's capsule, dadaan na ngayon yung dugo dun sa tinatawag nating proximal convoluted tubule. Okay? So, after the glomerulus filters it, okay, after dumaan sa glomerulus and Bowman's capsule, dadaan na ngayon dito sa proximal convoluted tubule. So ito yung parang quality control station, ano? Kasi from this proximal convoluted tubule, 65% ng water and solutes are reabsorbed to the body. So nire-reabsorb ng PCT na yan yung 65% na content ng dugo. And then, after dumaan sa proximal convoluted tubule, dadaan na ngayon dun sa tinatawag nating loop of Henle. Okay? Now, question lang, ano? In terms of permeability ng water and ion, gaano kaya ka-permeable yung proximal convoluted tubule? Ngayon, they are highly permeable for both water and ions. Kasi you have to understand, sabi ko nga kanina, 65% ng content ng dugo dyan sa proximal convoluted tubule bumabalik sa katawan. Okay? So 65% na lumalabas siya, so 65% that is both water and ion lumalabas sa PCT natin. So mataas ang water and ion permeability dyan. Now, after niya dumaan sa proximal convoluted tubule, yung dugo na ay papasok doon sa tinatawag nating descending loop of Henle. Okay? Now, sa descending loop of Henle, nagkakaroon na dyan ng another type of filtration. Okay? Now, sa descending loop of Henle, mataas ang water permeability dyan. So, ibig sabihin, yung tubig dyan ay kayang-kayang lumabas. Okay? So, mataas yung kanyang water permeability. So, lumalabas dyan ang water. Okay? Yung mga ions, hindi naman nakakapass through basta-basta dito sa descending loop of Henle. So, yung mga ions, natitira sila dito sa loob, whereas yung water, sila yung pwedeng makalabas sa descending loop of Henle. So, they have high water permeability and low ion permeability. Now, pagdaan naman niya doon sa ascending loop of Henle, baliktad naman na yung magiging process niya. Kasi ang lumalabas na dyan sa ascending loop of Henle, okay, ang lumalabas na sa kanila, dyan is yung ions. Meaning, the ion now have high permeability. Okay? So, the ions have high permeability. It could actually be pumped out of this ascending loop of Henle. Whereas yung water mo, they stay naman within. So, low water permeability and high ion permeability naman ang ascending loop of Henle. So, kapag descending, ang isipin nyo dyan, water ang nakakalabas. Descending, water ang nakakalabas. Ascending, ion ang nakakalabas. So, by that thought, malalaman mo na sa descending, high ang water permeability at low ang ion permeability. And sa ascending naman, baliktad. High ang ion permeability and low ang water permeability. And after that, after the descending loop of Henle, dadaan na ngayon yung substance doon sa tinatawag nating distal convoluted tubule. So sa distal convoluted tubule, variable ang permeability ng water dyan at saka ion. Kasi sa distal convoluted tubule, parang yan na yung, what do you call this? Yan yung parang pinaka-final na quality inspection check. And nakadepende yung permeability ng substance na yan doon sa iba't ibang klase ng hormones na nasa katawan. Particularly, yung tinatawag nating antidiuretic hormone. So when antidiuretic hormone is present, okay, when antidiuretic hormone is present, water is permeable. So kapag may ADH, nakakalabas ang tubig. Kapag wala namang ADH or antidiuretic hormone, impermeable yung water. So it stays there. Yan. And then after that, we have the collecting duct. Yan na yung final adjustment center where the body makes its final decision about how much water to keep or not to keep. So yan yung kabuuang story ng ating nephron in a quick glimpse. So una, dadaan sa glomerulus and then sa Bowman's capsule. Okay? And then the stuff will be pumped out will be pumped to your proximal convoluted tubule. So sa proximal convoluted tubule, 65% of water gets reclaimed diyan. Okay? So nare-reabsorb pabalik sa katawan. And then pupunta na siya sa descending loop of Henle kung saan water is highly permeable but ions are not. And then sa ascending loop of Henle, baliktad naman, ions are highly permeable whereas water is not. And then dadaan sa convoluted tubule kung saan depende sa ADH, makikita kung ikikip ba niya yung water or palalabasin niya base sa ADH level. And the final gate would be your collecting duct. So if your body needs water, the gates open here and you make dark concentrated urine. And if the animal drinks too much water, the gates stay closed here and you make clear diluted urine. So doon sa question natin, sa question number 17, ano daw yung pwedeng makalabas-pasok? Sabi natin, water. So ang water has high permeability sa descending loop of Henle. And then, yung ion naman, they have low permeability. So ang tamang sagot dyan is letter B. Okay? So sa part ng nephron kung saan mataas ang water permeability pero mababa ang ion permeability, descending loop of Henle ang tamang sagot dyan. Okay? Kapag ang question is low water permeability, sorry, low water permeability and high ion permeability, baliktad naman, ascending loop of Henle naman ang sagot dyan. Kapag ang question is 65% of water is being reclaimed, proximal convoluted tubule naman. Kapag ang question is nakadepende yung absorption ng water sa antidiuretic hormone, distal convoluted tubule naman ang tamang sagot dyan. Next question. Which of the following animals was not domesticated during the Neolithic period? So kapag sinabi nating Neolithic period, yan at actually yung tinatawag rin nating New Stone Age. So nangyari yan around 10,000 to 4,000 BCE. So at this stage, at the new Neolithic Stone Age, okay, at the New Stone Age na tinatawag, nagsimula na dyan yung agriculture and permanent settlements. And during this time, yung mga tao nagsimula na nilang alagaan yung mga hayop and animals. So, plant and animal domestication started at this particular stage. So, particularly, ano yung mga inaalagaan nilang hayop? We have cattle, yan, sheep, yes, and goat. So, yan yung mga sinimulan nilang alagaan na hayop na magiging part na ngayon ng kanilang pagkain. So, start yan ng agriculture and nag-start silang mga laga na dyan ng mga hayop. Okay? Now, alin ang ngayon ang hindi nila inalagaan under the Neolithic stage? That would be horses. Okay? Kasi ang horses during that time, hindi nila inalagaan yan. Hindi siya ganon ka-uso sa kanila or ka-familiar sa kanila in terms of using it for food purposes. In fact, ang mga horses, they are domesticated later on during what we call as the Bronze Stage. Okay? And ang main purpose talaga ng mga kabayo na ito is for hunting, okay, and for transportation. So these horses, they came later na ng ating Neolithic age. It was domesticated in the Bronze Ages. Number 19. What is the primary clinical sign of vitamin K deficiency in livestock? Okay? Ngayon kapag nakafocus kayo sa akin kanina when I was talking about nutrient deficiency, alam nyo na ang sagot. Okay? Primarily, kapag may vitamin K deficiency, ang nagiging problema dyan is hemorrhage or excessive bleeding or abnormal bleeding. Kasi naapektuhan dyan yung blood clotting system ng hayop. Okay? Kaya kapag wala masyadong vitamin K, hindi nagkaklat ng maayos yung blood, kaya nagkakaroon ng hemorrhage. Okay? Bone deformities would be vitamin D. Skin lesions would be vitamin C. Loss of appetite, possible na vitamin A yan. Okay? So, letter B. So, balik lang tayo dito sa review natin kanina. Kapag vitamin A, blindness, okay? It affects the vision. Vitamin D is more on the bones. vitamin K, dyan na yung blood clotting problem. And then iodine, we have goiter. Number 20, epistasis in livestock breeding refers to, so ano kaya daw ang epistasis? So tinatanong yung definition ng epistasis in livestock breeding. Does it refer to the dominance of one allele over another? Does it refer to the interaction between two or more genes affecting trait expression? Does it refer to mutation of genes during reproduction, or does it refer to random segregation of chromosomes? So when you say epistasis, ang tandaan nyo na keyword dyan is expression. Okay? So trait expression. So ang tamang sagot dyan is letter B. Okay? So what is epistasis? So epistasis involves the interaction between different genes where the expression of one gene can mask or pwedeng itago ng expression ng one gene na to yung expression ng another gene. Okay? So, yun yung definition ng epistasis. So, para siyang maskara. So, for example, meron kang gene ng pagiging matalino, pero may gene that hides the fact na ikaw ay matalino. Yan. Epistasis po ang tawag niyan. So, sa animal breeding, for instance, let's say you have two black cattle breeds. Okay? At ito yung kanilang what do you call this? Ito yung kanilang genes, no? BBEE and BBEE ulit. So ano yung ibig sabihin ng mga yan? So kapag capital letter B, it means black dominant. Kapag small letter B, it means orange yung hayop. Kapag E naman, it means it allows the expression of the color. Kapag capital letter E. Kapag small letter E naman, it prevents the expression of that particular color. So ano yung possible na maging anak ng mga to? First off, pwede silang magkaroon ng ganitong klaseng genes. So, 2 capital letter B, and it allows expression. Or we have dominant homozygous B, and it allows heterozygous E. Pwedeng ang magiging combination ng offspring nila is homozygous dominant B or heterozygous E, dominant E. Pwedeng heterozygous dominant B or heterozygous dominant E. Or pwedeng homozygous recessive B and heterozygous dominant E. Or homozygous recessive B and heterozygous dominant E. Okay? Now, at this particular instances, dito sa apat na magiging anak nila, okay? At this particular instances, kung mapapansin nyo, yung kanilang E gene, okay? They are all dominant. So, ibig sabihin, yung E natin dyan, it allows the expression of that particular color. So kung ano yung magiging color base sa combination ng whether black or orange ba siya. So remember kapag dominant black yan, kapag merong dominant black na gene, black talaga yung magiging kulay ng hayop, whereas kapag dalawang recessive, yun lang siya, ganun lang siya magiging orange. Depende doon whether black dominant or two recessive genes na e-express yung kulay. So for example, dito, black talaga yan, and the color is being expressed. Okay? Black talaga yung color ng hayop, tapos it is also being expressed by the capital letter E, kaya black yung ating hayop. Dito naman, black pa rin kasi black dominant siya, no? And the color is also being expressed. So, black yung hayop. Ngayon, on this two, ang color na niya, orange. Bakit orange? Kasi dalawang orange recessive gene yung meron dun sa kanyang color. Is the color being expressed? Yes, it is being expressed kasi meron kang dominant E dyan. Paano sir kapag recessive naman? Okay? Instead of, paano sir kapag recessive yung expression? Instead of allowing the expression, it now prevents the expression. Now, if it prevents the expression, ang nagiging color na nung ating hayop dyan is white. Okay? So, yan, yung homozygous recessive E na naandyan means it is preventing now the expression of that particular color. So, ang color, hindi magiging black or hindi magiging orange. Usually, magiging light colored lamang siya. Kasi nga, it prevents the expression of the color to appear. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng epistasis. Now, on the following slide, I will be discussing to you some other terms with regards to animal genetics. So, for instance, meron tayong tinatawag na genotype environment interaction. So, anong ibig sabihin ng genotype environment interaction? It simply refers to the phenomenon where different genotypes respond differently to environmental conditions. Like, for instance, you have your cattle here. Okay, let's say your cattle here is meant to grow faster and bigger in tropical regions. Okay? So this one is a Holstein Friesian na cattle. So it is meant to grow faster and bigger in tropical climates. Kapag ang climate is temperate, okay? Kapag ang climate ay masyadong mainit, this will not occur. Okay? The cattle might not grow faster or bigger. It might grow smaller. So, kung mapapansin natin, nag-i-interact ngayon yung gene at saka yung environment. So, nakadepende doon sa combination ng both kung maa-unlock ba yung expression na yon or hindi. Fitness. What do we mean by fitness? So, fitness in evolutionary biology, it refers to an organism's ability to survive, reproduce, okay? Pass on the genes, so that's mating success, and to be adaptable. Yun naman ang ibig sabihin ng fitness. So kapag narinig nyo yung term na fitness, it simply means, kaya bang mag-survive ng hayop na to? Okay? Hindi lang yung hayop na yun mismo, but rather yung kanyang gene, yung kanyang genes doon sa kabuuang population. And finally, we have the word panmixia. So panmixia describes a population structure where all individuals, they have an equal opportunity or probability of mating with each other. So sa agriculture, this can be observed in certain free-ranging cattle populations kung saan hindi ganon ka-control yung breeding practices. So kumbaga, hinahayaan lang natin sila to breed on their own. Kaya each of them has an equal probability of mating with each other. Okay? Number 21. Which method? So, alin daw sa mga method na nasa baba, sa options natin, ang ginagamit to determine what crude fiber content in animal feed? So, yung animal feed natin, ina-analyze natin yung contents nila. So, kung gaano karami yung protein, carbohydrates, fats, and other trace minerals. Ngayon, tinatanong sa number 21, aling method daw measures the component of the feed that are crude fiber? Okay, so yung fiber, aling method kaya ang ginagamit to measure yung fiber content ng ating feed? So, isa-isahin natin. We have Geldal method. Or have I said that right? No? Or Geldal method siguro yan. Baka silent letter K. Now, ang Geldal method is a method that is used to determine nitrogen content in the feed. Okay? Now, when you talk about nitrogen content, dapat ang unang papasok sa isip nyo is crude protein. Kasi ginagamit yung nitrogen content ng feed in order to estimate the crude protein content. So, Geldal method is not used to measure the crude fiber, but rather it is used to estimate crude protein. So, mali na yan. Okay? How about yung Soxhlet extraction? So, yung Soxhlet extraction naman, it is used to measure or to estimate crude fat. Again, ang hinahanap natin sa question is crude fiber. So, the Soxhlet extraction, crude fat po naman ang minimeasure niyan. How about yung polarimetric method? Ang polarimetric method naman, it is a method that is used to measure sugar or carbohydrate contents in the feed. So it's not the fiber, but rather the carbohydrate content. So mali na yung tatlo na nauna kanina. So ang tamang sagot doon sa way natin to measuring the crude fiber content of the field is what we call as the Winder method. So sa Winder method, yan yung pamamaraan ng mga scientists natin, ng mga animal scientists natin to measure the crude fiber in the field. So basically, may mga pinaghahalo-halo silang chemical dyan, yan, acid and base digestion chemicals in order to remove the non-fiber components, as yung matitira na lang is yung fiber components, and by that, they can measure the fiber content of the feed. So see, Geldal method, it is used to measure crude protein. Socklet is used to measure fat. Polarimetric is carbohydrate, and Winder naman is yung fiber content naman yung kanyang mini-measure. What is the term for a castrated male horse? So the term for a castrated male horse is stallion, mare, gelding, or colt. So the correct answer here is letter C. Okay? A castrated male horse is called a gelding. So I have put together here a slide on the different terms for castrated male livestock para mas madali ninyong ma-memorize kung ano ba yung iba't ibang tawag dun sa mga castrated male livestock ng iba't ibang hayop. For instance, a castrated male cattle is called a steer. Okay? A castrated male cattle that has been trained for draft or riding purposes is called an ox or oxen. A castrated male draft animal or older steer in regions outside the United States, they are called bullock naman. A castrated male horse or donkey is called a gelding. A castrated male goat or sheep is called a wether. A male pig that is castrated before sexual maturity is called a barrow. A male cattle or pig castrated after sexual maturity is called a stag. And a castrated male chicken harvested 4 to 8 months is called a capon. Number 23. What is the typical fat content of buffalo milk compared to cow milk? So, ito, nabanggit ko na to sa inyo kanina, nasabi ko na ang buffalo milk, mas mataas yung fat content niya kaysa sa cow's milk. So, mas richer yung lasa ng buffalo milk kaysa sa cow milk. Ang hindi natin alam though is gaano karami or how much higher is the buffalo milk, okay, in comparison to cow's milk. So, ang tamang sagot dyan is 2 times higher than cow's milk. So, ito yung table of comparison. For buffalo milk, kung mapapansin nyo, yung fat content niya is 17 grams, whereas the cow's milk is around 8 grams. So, around 2, okay, around twice the buffalo milk has a fat content that is twice higher than that of cow's milk. Now, titignan natin in terms of percentages, ang cow's milk is around 3.5%. Yung fat content ng cow's milk is 3.5% lamang ng kabuuang gatas niya. Whereas ang buffalo milk has way higher, around 7.5% of the total milk concentrate. Okay? Number 24. What is the typical crude protein percentage in starter feed for broiler chickens? So, starter feed for broiler chicken. Okay? Starter feed for broiler chicken. So, again, bata yung manok, and yung manok na yon, kasi starter yan, ano? And yung manok na yon ay ginagamit for meat production. So, balikan natin yung table na na-discuss natin kanina. So here, broiler starters is around 20 to 23% crude protein. Yan yung pangangailangan niya. So balik tayo dito, saan pinakamalapit yung 20 to 23%? Dito siya, sa 22%. Letter C. Okay? So ang tamang sagot dyan is letter C, 22%. Next. Ito, na-discuss na rin natin to kanina dun sa mga panimulang mga questions. Ano naman daw yung normal resting heart rate ng adult horse in beats per minute? So normal or yung healthy resting heart rate or pulse rate ng adult horse, ang sagot dyan ay letter B, 28 to 40 beats per minute. So here, in the table that was also shown to you before, ang horses have 28 to 40 beats per minute. Number 26. Which instrument allows directly listening to the blood pressure sound through the ear in livestock? Okay. So ano kaya daw yung instrument na ginagamit to listen to blood pressure sound gamit yung ating tenga? So otoscope, oriscope, acoustic tube, or stethoscope? Now, syempre, ang sagot dyan is stethoscope. Di ba? Stethoscope, yan yung ginagamit natin to listen internally dun sa blood pressure na nandun sa livestock natin. Now, ano ba ang otoscope at oriscope at saka acoustic tube na nandyan sa options? Now, ang otoscope at oriscope, parehas lamang yan. Okay? Now, the otoscope and oriscope is a tool that is used to inspect the ear canal and the eardrum, not to listen to internal sounds. Okay? So, kapag pumunta kayo, nagpa-check up sa hospital, minsan chine-check yung tenga nyo, right? So, yung ginagamit doon na parang pang-check ng tenga na may liwanag doon sa dulo, ang tawag doon otoscope or oriscope. Okay? Now, ang stethoscope, that is now the instrument that allows a person, that allows a veterinarian, for example, to listen directly to the internal body sounds of animals. So, ginagamit yan to listen to heartbeats, to listen to respiration or blood pressure sound. Ngayon, yung option kanina na acoustic tube, okay, yung option kanina na acoustic tube, yan, this is part of the stethoscope but it's not the total stethoscope at all. Kaya yung acoustic tube dyan ay mali. So, otoscope and oriscope, parehas lang yan. Ginagamit yan to check the ears of the animals. And the acoustic tube naman is only a part of your stethoscope. Number 27. Quarter horses excel at short distance sprinting. Nabanggit na natin yan kanina dun sa question number 1. So ang sabi dyan sa statement, quarter horses excel at short distance sprinting compared to thoroughbreds because they have what? So ano kaya yung reason kung bakit mas mabilis silang tumakbo in short distance sprinting as compared to the thoroughbreds breed of horse? Is that because they have more slow-twitching muscle fibers? They have more fast-twitching muscle fibers? They have longer legs? Or they have more flexible spines? Okay? Now, to answer this question, we need to know the two types of muscle fibers. So, meron kang dalawang klase ng muscle fiber. Meron kang slow-twitch fibers and meron kang fast-twitch muscle fibers. Ano yung pinagkaiba ng mga yan? Yung slow twitch fibers, we also call this as your type 1 muscle fibers, they are very efficient muscle fibers. So efficient sila, okay? And they really work well for long distance endurance run. So yung slow twitch muscles natin, slow twitch muscles ng muscle fibers ng animal, they are efficient kaya ginagamit siya for endurance running. So itong slow twitch type 1 muscle fibers, yan yung marami actually sa mga endurance runners ng mga horses, katulad ng thoroughbreds and Arabian. Ang marami sa mga quarter horses mo naman is the fast twitch muscle fibers. Now ito, para siyang turbo kumbaga sa sasakyan. So this type 2 muscle fibers, they contract quickly and powerfully. Kaya merong short burst of speed na binibigay doon sa ating mga quarter horses. So for this question, number 27, ang mga quarter horses, mas mabilis silang tumakbo, mas mabilis silang mag-sprint, especially in short distance because they have more fast twitching muscle fibers or they have more type 2 muscle fibers. Number 28. Why do broiler chickens require higher crude protein than laying hens? So bakit mas mataas daw ang pangangailangan ng mga broilers in terms of crude proteins as or in comparison to laying chickens? So bakit kaya? Well, for one, ang mga broilers kasi natin, syempre they are meant for meat production. And since they are meant for meat production, kailangan nila ng mas maraming protein for muscle development. So ang tamang sagot dito sa number 28 is letter A. Okay? So since they grow faster and they need more protein for muscle development, they need more crude protein than laying hens. Ang mga laying hens natin, hindi naman sila they are not used primarily to produce meat. Okay? So hindi nila kailangan ng masyadong maraming crude protein because of that. Pero ang kailangan actually sa pagkain naman ng laying hens is calcium. Kasi kailangan yung calcium para kalidad yung formation ng eggshell ng kanyang itlog. So the rest of the answers, kumari ito, broilers cannot digest protein efficiently is wrong. In fact, broilers can. Okay? They can digest protein efficiently. Yun yung isa sa mga karakteristik nila, kaya sila ginagamit for meat production. Broilers have larger body frames. This is slightly correct. Totoo naman. Okay? Na ang mga broilers natin, mas malalaki yung kanilang pangangatawan kasi nga ginagamit siya for meat production. But hindi yan yung pinaka-main na reason based on the option. So, tama siguro si letter C kung wala si letter A. Okay? Kasi si letter C, it now it shows us the characteristic of broilers kung bakit kailangan nila ng mas maraming crude protein. And that is mas malaki yung kanilang pangangatawan. So, slightly correct, but it is not the best answer based on the options. And si letter D naman, broilers need more protein for egg production. Mali. Kasi nga, broilers are not meant for egg production, but they are rather meant for meat production. Okay? Now, again, pagdating sa multiple choice questions, ang lagi nyong titignan dyan is, yung lagi kong binibigay na technique sa mga estudyante is, you don't need to find the correct answer, you just have to find the best answer. And a lot of the questions sa exam, parang sa tingin mo, unang tingin mo pa lang, parang tama na lahat ng sagot. Diba? So for example, letter A and letter C, parang tama naman yung dalawang yan. But again, ang pipiliin mo, ano ba yung pinakatama? Sometimes, yung mga sagot doon, puro mali. Ang pipiliin mo, alin doon sa mga maling sagot ang pinakatama. So that's one technique that you can use when you are answering now questions pagdating sa yung licensure exam. Number 29. What is the normal respiratory rate naman for cattle in breaths per minute? So, napakita ko ulit yung table kanina. Cattle, yung normal na breaths per minute ng cattle is around 26 to 50 breaths per minute. So, ang sagot dyan is letter C, 26 to 50. And number 30, finally, what is the most effective method to prevent iodine deficiency goiter in livestock? So, alin daw dyan yung pinaka-effective na method to, ito yung keyword to prevent iodine deficiency. So, we are looking at the options that will prevent the animals from lack of iodine. Okay? Kasi yung lack of iodine na yun, nagkukos siya ng goiter. So, letter A, sabi dyan, treating affected animals with iodine supplementation. Ngayon, this option is already wrong based off on the question. Bakit siya mali? Kasi remember, ang hinahanap natin is a method that will prevent iodine deficiency. Eh, sinasabi sa letter A, i-treat mo daw yung hayop with iodine supplementation. Now, when you say you are treating the animal, iba na yan doon sa preventing iodine deficiency. Kasi pag sinabi mong treatment, ibig sabihin, ginagamot mo na sila. Whereas preventing means you are doing something that will prevent the deficiency from happening. That is why letter A is already wrong. How about letter D? Reducing feed intake to prevent metabolic disorders. Hindi maganda yan. Kasi ang goal mo sa hayop mo, pakainin mo. So, hindi naman porket meron siyang metabolic disorder, hindi mo na siya papakainin. Okay? Para lang hindi na magtuloy-tuloy yung disorder na yon. So, mali na agad yan. How about feeding animals in areas with iodine-rich soil? Okay? So, baka isipin nyo, uy, iodine. Nandun yung keyword, iodine. Right? Now, mali na yan. Okay? Ang sinasabi lang sa letter B is that you are feeding the animals sa isang lupa na mayaman sa iodine. So it doesn't make any sense. Not unless ang pinapakain mo dun sa hayop mo is lupa rin that is rich in iodine. Okay? Now, kapag pinakain mo yung hayop mo ng lupa, eh, hindi yan kakain kasi ang hayop naman ay hindi po kumakain ng lupa. So mali rin yan. Ha? You have to be very careful to read the options carefully. So by process of elimination, ang pinakatamang sagot to prevent iodine deficiency is by supplementing rations with iodized salt. So this is the correct answer. Okay? Now, bigyan natin yung hayop natin, particularly sa mga ruminants, ng iodized salt. Kasi yung iodized salt na yan ay rich in iodine and it could now provide them with the necessary iodine in order to prevent iodine deficiency. Okay? So, that's it for our 30 questions in animal science. Ipag-pray nyo ako na matapos ko yung aking crop protection presentation para bukas may ma-discuss ako. Kung sakaling hindi ko man siya matapos ngayon, but I am hoping na matapos ko ngayon, baka ang next na post ko would be on Saturday. Okay? Saturday. Sunday, baka di ako makapag-post ng Sunday, but I'll try my best, Kasi Sunday is a holy day. It's the day that we should go to mass and worship the Lord there. Okay? So maraming salamat ulit sa pakikinig. Hopefully may mga nakuha kayong lessons sa presentation na to na magagamit nyo sa exam. Now, nag-post ako sa Facebook kahapon sa mga hindi pa nagfa-follow or nanonood ng mga YouTube lectures ko kasi hindi nyo alam na meron pala akong YouTube lecture. Please do so. Particularly, pumunta kayo doon sa test drill na playlist. So, doon sa test drill na playlist, para na rin yung final coaching. Panoorin nyo lahat yon. You can get around, if I'm not mistaken, maybe around 40, 35 to 40 questions na may detailed explanation din, katulad ng ginagawa ko dito sa lecture na to. So, maraming salamat ulit sa inyo, guys. Good night, or good morning, or good afternoon. Depende kung anong oras nito pinapanood. Thank you! So, wait. Ang sagot dyan ay letter C.